Welcome, everybody, to Science and the Mystical. This is such a passion for me to interview amazing, amazing people that I've come to know. I feel so blessed. And today we have the lovely Andrea Winters here with us. And Andrea our lives have kind of woven in and out of space over several years. And really, once you meet Andrea, you will always remember her. And I say that in the nicest, kindest way because you're just this bubbling vortex of joy and passion and empowerment for people. And you just take life on in the biggest form. And it's delightful to watch, and it's so energizing to be around. So I just appreciate you so much. I think another thing that I really love about you is that you trust the process. And if there's a door closed, that means that a bundle more are opening. And that confidence helps others around you to feel confident. And it's like strength begets strength, energy begets energy, that we feed off of each other. And you are such a leader in that way. And I love that about you. Even when you come to see me and I'm the leader, in the moment, there is such equanimity. Like we are two strong forces looking into the eyes of the other. And I really love that. So there's no intimidation. There's just sharing and reciprocity. So it's just quite lovely. The greatest thing about you is you have your fingers in a whole bunch of pots as well. And we're going to explore some of that today. And I'm going to leave you to introduce all of that. So welcome, Andrea.
Well, thank you, Maureen. I'm very excited to be chatting with you today. Honored and blessed beyond words. And as you said, I mean, multiple incarnations over however many years, we just bump, and away we go. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Such a pleasure. And it's you're just such a champion for so many people. And I'm here to champion you forward. Not that you need any help, but it all
we all need a little help.
Yeah, but it fills the heart. Like, it's heartwarming, and it's quite adventurous too. So tell us a little bit about you.
Oh my, where to begin? So my name is Andrea Lee Winters. I'm an interfaith metaphysical minister. I've been studying metaphysics since probably 1999. And like many of us back in the era, we got our introduction to metaphysics through Esther and Jerry Hicks, Esther channeling Abraham.
Oh.
Yeah, back in the day.
Wow.
When pre-Esther, when we used to literally once a month get a little cassette tape in the mail, and once a month there'd be 8 of us, we'd sit around and we'd listen to these tapes. And at the time I had no clue, what was this channeling stuff, the energy and the words just resonated and felt right. So like many, I went down that law of attraction path. So I'm a wedding officiant. So I'm exclusivity for the Modern Wedding Show, which just happened this past weekend, which was kind of epic on so many levels. So I feel very blessed to be part of that. So full on wedding season. And over the last 3 years, I was gently, more like kicking and screaming, nudged into studying to become a death doula. And that's now where a lot of my focus is being taken. So it's finding that balance. I mean, in a joking sense, and I say this with respect, I marry them and I bury them. So
oh my goodness.
Way to
well,
in a joking sense, I can say that. But,
yes,
but I know that my joy and passion is weddings, but I know that my soul's calling is the death doula work, and to assist people to transition from this physical form onto their next life, and to bring some awareness and open some dialogue around that.
Which would you like to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about weddings.
Okay.
That's just so much fun. And I love fun.
Let's go there.
So weddings are fun. And I mean, where do we begin? The last 3 years put a kibosh on a lot of people's experience.
Yes.
So how it started for me, I did my ordination. I was a seminarian for 7 years. And like so many of us, that would be indigos, we do the research. And I'm constantly reading, writing, exploring, going down different rabbit holes. And a friend of mine who I knew from when I used to own my consignment store said to me, will you marry us? And I was like, well, let me think about it. I come home and I'm like, hello, this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I went on, organized their wedding and basically launched a business through COVID. and it just kind of took off. I was one of the only officiants that was very comfortable in any environment doing weddings wherever. And the sad thing about that story, I mean, the most beautiful wedding, it was a pagan Celtic Nordic wedding.
Hmm.
They started with 200 guests. They went to 50 guests because this was March 21st, 2020. And at a wedding from 200 guests, they went to 7 guests showed up for the day of the wedding. So it was
Oh,
heartbreaking. The bride herself had made 24 costumes or outfits for people, labor of love. And it was beautiful for those of us. I mean, they were the type of people that made the best of it, but it was a heartbreaking story. The photos there would not show you what went on behind the scenes with only 7 guests, but that's how kind of things started. So today's day and age, what's so cool is because I'm an interfaith minister, and then bring in the metaphysical aspect, I can marry anybody. Like in 2 weeks, I'm doing a wedding that is a Chinese Jamaican wedding. And we're going to amalgamate the traditions together. So that's what I love to do, is bring the creative process and bring different cultures, different diversity, people with different spiritual, religious backgrounds, and meld those two together and really make ceremonies that are meaningful for people. And I love the party. I love everything. I mean, I'm a Libra. I'm all about the beauty and the magic. I love all things weddings. So I really bring that joy and passion to someone's ceremony and experience.
they must just love having you on board because there are no stops, right?
No.
It just moves forward, and if you have to redirect, you redirect, and so you're able to hold it all. And I certainly know that about you in the other arenas that I know you from, but and it's kind of a crazy thing. So I have a question. I told somebody that I was going to be interviewing you today and what you did. They don't know you, but they said, ask her how many people actually meet on dating apps.
Probably over 80%.
No way.
80 to 90%. That is the most common way that people meet these days, especially in the last 3 years. It's so common. It used to have a negative stigma, and now it's like, no, it's open. It's kind of the way that things happen now. It is by far the most common way. Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, well, now we know, right?
Yeah. And there's so many different apps out there, and there's so many different ways you can go about doing it. I do encourage anyone that's thinking about doing it to use a lot of discernment in all things. But when you're using those apps, use a lot of discernment. Be a little cautious, be a little wary. But again, it's a great way to go have your checklist out there and have the boxes all ticked.
Crazy, crazy. Yeah, I've always only heard the other side, and then you start hearing, oh, these two met and these two are getting married, and so we're now starting to see a more positive aspect to or perspective on those kinds of apps and things. So yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
there you go. Wow, who knew, right? It's like
Yeah. And
crazy.
that's one of the questions I ask couples is, how did you meet? Because
Yes.
I want to know. And it's more than 80%. It's on the apps.
And what's the next most common way to meet?
Through friends. A lot of people are still childhood. They meet childhood. They went to high school. My favorite stories are the people that dated and then have reconnected 20, 30 years later. People have gone their separate ways and then have reconnected and realized, you were my lost love, and have reconnected, and then they want to. And for some of them, it's second marriages. But those stories just make my heart warm because you can see the spark. You can see that spark and that kindling. And what's really cool is, for people that had some life experience, there's a different flavor than the early 20s, mid 20 people that are getting married. There's very different energies and flavors. So it's really neat to work with both. But you can see some trends in both.
Mhm. Is
It's
there
just
any
fun.
kind of age group that tend to find you more than others?
You know what's interesting? I feel blessed because of the energy that I bring. I'm kind of generic. I can marry anybody. The young people that resonate with their energy because I bring it, the fun stuff, and because I have the maturity and the wisdom to resonate with people my own age or older, they also do find me. A big win for me is because I've been doing this the last 3 years. I've connected with a lot of the wedding planners, event planners, those kinds of things, and the big win again is the modern wedding show for me, because they took a risk on me, 3 years ago. They said, wedding officiants don't really work out for us. And I said, well, what I do is a little bit different. I said, why don't you take a risk? And
Oh, good
so
on you.
them gifting me that exclusivity has been a huge win for me. And I also do, because the coordinators that they coordinate Pet Palooza. So the gift was last summer, they asked me if I would come to do Tibetan dog blessings at
No
Pet
way.
Palooza. So yeah, and I had so much fun, and I did it one day, not the next. And they said, we heard so many stories of people having such moving experiences. They asked me to do it again this year. So of course, and then they said, will you come to Vancouver too and do it? And I said, absolutely. So I love it. I absolutely love to get to hang out with dogs all day. I mean, how much fun is that?
Pet Palooza, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's an event here in Esquimalt. It's like, if people are dog people, they know about this event. It's a huge, huge deal over in Esquimalt in August.
So you do blessings on dogs?
Yeah, it's following a Tibetan tradition of blessing the dogs and thanking them for their service in that moment. Because as you know, animals bring so much joy into our experience. For many people, they're like their children or their babies. And they bring such comfort and such unconditional love to pets. So to be able to take a moment to say to an animal, thank you for your service. It's a beautiful experience.
My gosh, like my heart is just like, oh, overwhelmed.
It's pure magic. It's pure magic. It's so much fun.
Oh my gosh. That I've never heard of that before. How can I be this age and never have heard of that? Like it's a new thing today. So
it is a new thing. But yeah,
so
it's beautiful. And again, that transitions to again doing pet funerals, or we're doing ceremony when people lose their pets. They're important parts of our lives. So it's also, we can bring that element too. It's really beautiful. I mean, I've had dogs, and what I love is in my session with you, you saw my little dog hanging around me. And for me, that was such beautiful confirmation to know that although she's crossed over, she's still very much with me. And I love it, because the odd time I can feel her snuggled in behind my legs, just giving me that little love nudge. So pets are so important, and we need to acknowledge and embrace the importance of them in our lives.
So you do deathing ceremonies for animals as well?
Yeah. You can create beautiful, simple rituals with animals, and it brings closure for a lot of people. And that's why it's important. The last 3 years has been, I've been challenged having a physical ceremony, whether it be a funeral or a celebration of life. It really does have a different energy than doing online Zoom funerals, which has become a big thing in the last 3 years. I mean, that's a huge industry now. But for me, it's that personal experience of being with people around that and feeling the energy, and being in a grief process where you're all experiencing grief to a different degree and in a different way. But it does help bring closure on an energetic level, so that it gives the soul of that animal or person a means to carry on. And an individual can begin to continue in their own healing and grief process and move back into normalcy of life.
That's crazy to me. Now, I'd heard that funerals were happening via Zoom or video conferencing, which I understood at the time.
Yeah.
When I think of, I've been to a lot of funerals over the years, and the best part is to hug, to cry, to reminisce, to feel, to touch. I can't imagine that we can replace that.
I agree. And I agree with you. I agree with you. I believe there's a place and time, and that's why the Zoom aspect, I think, is good for people. If there's people overseas or people long distance or who are infirmed and can't make it, I think there's a place for that. We do that with weddings as well. I always encourage people to, have live stream for people that can't come in. But I agree. When it comes to the grieving process, it's so important to have that physical touch.
Yeah. Yeah, to fall into the arms of someone who can just hold you, during your kind of understanding or grappling for understanding for how it went or whatever. We all have our own level of comfort being with those things.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good segue into the death doula work, because that's something that a death doula can provide is, even for an individual who's preparing to transition across, everyone's in their own process, the family members, close friends, the caregiver team. And for people, it's so important to know that although they're going through something, to still have someone who can come in and physically touch them,
Mhm.
whether it's just holding someone's hand or giving someone a gentle foot massage, or just wiping their brow. That is so, so, so important. And I feel like that's been taken out of when
Mhm.
it comes to death care or hospice, is that's where the role of a death doula can come in and offer some of that comfort, to know we need physical touch. We are so human. And that has, over the last 3 years, that's proven itself so important on so many levels. We absolutely are humans, and we need to connect at a physical level. Hugs are so critical. Eye contact,
Yeah.
seeing each other's mouths and being able to read speech and reading someone's facial expressions. These things are so important for the growth and development of children and for basic human connection. And one of the things too, I mean, we're seeing in young people who are so disconnected from being able to connect with each other and have intimate conversations because of the internet age, because of all of the technology. So I think it's so critical we come back to that. We need to have more one-on-one real conversations. Put down the cell phone, put down the technology, and create space for those conversations to come back in.
Mhm. Mhm. I've again been with a lot of dying people, and the person who's dying has a totally different perspective than the people supporting the person who's dying. And you, again, through my experience, I see that the person who's dying has had to really come face to face with some things, and actually has more of a calm when it comes to the process. The others in and around it are the ones that, that as a healthcare practitioner, it's calming them down, because
Yes.
the person who's dying is actually they understand. The others are still trying to fix and kind of come up with solutions, and they're frantic. There's this frenetic energy
Yeah.
that is taking away from the experience of being with the person who's transitioning.
Right. That is exactly. And that's again the role of a death doula, can come in and provide that space for, those one-on-one contacts with individual family members or those that are close to the individual who is preparing to cross.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a and it's a again, as you know, um, it takes an unusual and unique personality to be able to hold the space and the container for that.
Yeah.
And you and I are people, we have experienced the other side, and we know that there's physical death of the physical, but the soul continues and carries on. So it's bringing that information and that into conversation, so that people have an awareness and an understanding that our loved ones are still so close to us at any time.
Yes. I just listened to a podcast by Tom Knowles. Are you familiar with him?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so he's a Vedic master or whatever. I think his podcast is called Vedic Worldview or something like that.
Yeah.
But he was speaking on death, and one of the things he said that I found just, it was a really good reminder. And Sadhguru also speaks to this. Is, Sadhguru says that we simply drop our coat, being the physical embodiment. And Tom Knowles, he speaks about it as, we're simply dropping the body, which is saying the same thing. And that by being so devastated by death, we actually are not acknowledging that life continues, which is an insult to the person who has passed. And I thought that was such an interesting perspective. It's like, no, like from behind the screen, if you want to call it that, it's like, hello, I'm still here. I still have substance. I still have consciousness. It's just transformed. And, I know, like, for me, that world is quite available in terms of the person who's
Mhm.
passed and their communication with us. Um, I think by acknowledging that it's simply a shift in consciousness makes that connection perpetuate, and
Mhm.
it's a really beautiful thing. It's not like,
It is, and I think that's part of the education. I know that's something that you and I do, and so many of us are trying to bring that information forward, because the system has, cut that off. you
Mhm.
know, the real information that the soul does, you know, our consciousness does continue to carry on. And that's been basically wiped out of dialogue. And
Mhm.
if people knew more, so we need to bring that conversation back in. And basically it's re-educate people
Mhm.
around that space, that this isn't ooh airy fairy artsy fartsy stuff. This is, you know, kind of the way it is. So, and it's finding ways to bring those conversations in. And that's, you know, the work that you do. I love science and mysticism, bringing the two together, because I know that's, you know, what you're able to facilitate is let's find ways to have those conversations and bring that information out into basically the mainstream reality.
Mhm. Absolutely. And the ancient traditions, support these ways of thinking for sure. There's so much to learn from them, and I'm just in awe of their perspectives. They really make us stop and think and ponder how
Mhm.
limited our view is sometimes. And you don't have to be religious or join a movement or any of those things, but it's really worth considering when it comes to what does happen. How does this change? And um, so I would imagine that you are at the bedside of those who are passing, or do you come in after, or what's the timing on all this?
It can be anything and all of the above.
Okay.
And that's the difference in what a death doula does. It's I'm not out there really talking about, you know, in conversation I'll mention what I do, but it's not, you know, for the wedding business, I'm actively, you know, marketing myself, putting my business. I don't do that in the death care because I think it's a very different genre. There's a beautiful piece that goes with that. So it's through friends, through connections. It's helping people who are like, you know, I'm in my 60s or in my 70s. I'm starting to think about this. Where do I go? What do I do? So I can start those conversations.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I did Mandy's funeral. Mandy was the owner of Petula jewelry store at the Uptown Mall. You know, she had over 500 people
Oh.
attend her celebration of life. Mandy was in her early, you know, 30s, and you know, I can't even imagine the devastation. She left a small young boy, and she was pregnant at the time when she did cross over. So could have been complication. Don't know why, but it was like the beautifulness of having an experience of you know of that. It rocked my world so much to know. Let's create a celebration and let's really celebrate Mandy's life in that perspective, and holding a container for whatever is going to happen. And it's, you know, it's given the permission. And I love that in a lot of my training it was, and I'll never forget this. I did a lot of my training with sacred crossings, and she said, as a celebrant of life, you're going to cry, and I do cry, but
Mm.
it's just hot stinging tears that will just roll. It's not the heaving stuff. And it's okay to do that because you give permission to people to have that experience as well, you know, to be present and fully in the moment. So, you know, that was one of the many beautiful experiences. And there's a lot of controversy right now out there, and I have chosen to remove myself from certain aspects of the death care movement right now, more doing my own solo. But it really is anything. It can be someone who's starting to talk about what's the process, you know, how do I, you know, is green burial an option? What are my options to have those conversations, to working with someone who has a terminal illness or terminal diagnosis, and they're moving through those processes, to sitting at someone's bedside, to being that person. You know, I haven't done it yet, but I'm interested in doing home funerals. Like let's keep
Yeah.
someone's body in the home for up to 3 days, and we can do that legally in Victoria, which is beautiful, to
Nice.
have that space. Because think about it, 60 years ago, our grandparents, someone passed away, let's lay them out on the kitchen table and have a kitchen party.
Yes, exactly.
That's the way it was. So let's bring that in instead of, you know, death has become, you know, institutionalized, you know, behind closed doors, taken away. So this, of course, there's so much fear around it because it's become so, you know, sterilized. But let's bring some of that back in. You know, so the other role is not only celebrations of life or funerals or doing grieving, helping support a grieving family after the fact. But it's also 3 months later, 6 months later, checking in with someone. Okay, where are you at? How are things going? And bringing some memorialization to individuals.
Mhm.
So as a death doula, it's all encompassing. There's so many different facets and aspects. Because of the work that I do, it's primarily funerals or celebrations of life. But there is so many different aspects of supporting people through this process. And one of the biggest things is opening a conversation. We need to find ways to open conversation and talk about this so that it's not hidden behind doors, because that's where the fear comes from. Let's have those conversations and talk about what the process really is all about, so that when people come into that, there's not so much fear. And there's so much fear mongering. We've really seen a precedent of that in the last 3 years. Let's take that back a step. Is the fear real? Well, more than likely it's not. It's being perpetuated by our thoughts. And again, that's a whole other conversation we can have. But let's have open dialogue, open conversation, and bring this stuff into the forefront so that there's a level of comfortability for everyone involved.
Mhm, mhm. Well, none of us get out of here alive, as they say. So,
That's correct.
so it's interesting that this will happen to 100% of us, and yet we have no comfort in conversation. It's something we avoid. Making a will for people is something we avoid, and like there's so many things. Um, what you're doing is brilliant.
I mean, and one of the big things too is having things like an advanced care plan. So I encourage people to, even in the comfort of their own home, imagine yourself in the last 6 months of your life. Let's say you've been given a plan. What do you want your end of life to look like?
Mm,
It's giving directives to medical professionals saying, I don't want it to be resuscitated. I don't want that tube down my throat. You know, it's really learning about, and it can be very, people just the basics, but leaving something for your family and loved ones so that they know your wishes are adhered to.
yeah.
And that's one of the biggest challenges is people come to these, they have a parent or a child or something, and they need to know what to do. And people are racked with uncertainty because they don't know. Whereas if individuals had written instructions down, going, this is what I want, then the person who's offering care, they can say, yeah, this is really what mom wanted or dad wanted, or what my brother or sister would want. It's as simple as taking a little bit of time and writing these things down. Because
Are
as
you putting something together that way for people to walk through? That just seems,
so yes, of course,
yes,
that's in the works. There are things that do exist.
yes.
Sadly, the government stuff, somehow or the government is too heady and it's mumbo jumbo garble. It's too much. We
Mm.
can break it down into 5 easy, simple steps. So these tools do exist. So am I working on something behind the scenes to create my own package? Yeah, yeah, that is in the works because there's just a few simple things we can do. And if we had things like, think about it, the internet, right?
Yes, yes,
All your passcodes, all your passwords. You can
yes,
be an entity on Facebook. You could have cross physical form, but you're still out there, right? So if people knew simple, just put a list together of all your passwords for everything, put that in your death care file. As
yes.
it's just something it's very simple, very basic. It doesn't need to be this grandiose, thing, but it is taking some time to just again, we come back to having that dialogue and having that conversation.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, we all hear stories. One of my friends, when her mom died, there were all these outstanding little bits owing on credit cards, and who knew that you could have that many credit cards? And after that happened, and I heard all those stories about it, I went and made sure my will was good, and it called me to action to take care of a few things. But I'm always really interested. There's always going to be something that you miss or whatever, but we want the process to be, as smooth as possible. And, our own requests of people during that time, right?
Yes.
Uh, it's a thing. Tough
Yeah,
time,
and I mean,
right?
well, exactly. And you consider it, if someone is in a hospice type environment,
Mm.
those kinds of things. There's simple things you can do, like, have background music.
Mhm.
If someone wants that, have background music playing of their favorite songs to create ambiance. If someone had a favorite scent, let's say they loved lavender, we can
Mm.
have lavender in there, because what we don't realize is, while someone may be laying there and they may look unconscious, they're fully conscious.
Oh,
All
true.
their senses are still awake and fully alive.
Mhm.
And so if we can create an ambiance and an atmosphere, we can help people's transition be a lot smoother than they need to be. And one of the biggest things is acknowledging when people are making that transition, the veil has become thin, and they're saying that they see people, you know, mother, brother. Well, hello, ding dong, you and I both know they are seeing those energies.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas, and I love that. I have talked to some hospice and some nurses and say, yeah, they get it, but that's not common. And so the mainstream will label them delusional. They're having delusions. Well, no, they're
Oh,
actually having a conversation with granddad or with their mom, and that those individuals are there to give a sense of comfort and to ease and to help them transition. So it's
yes.
just bringing that information forward. So 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 important. It would make this I look at it as, it's messy, bumpy, but it can be so beautiful.
Do you
Transition
see
time can
those
be beautiful.
entities that show up?
Pardon?
Do you see those ancestors or entities? Do you see them show up? Is that
Not nearly as commonly as you do. For me, it's more sporadic. And I think as I'm in creative negotiations with spirit, because I resist and I resist and I resist and I've resisted for a long time having those experiences. So
mm,
they happen sporadically to me on an as needed basis. So
mhm,
it's more so when I'm in that intensity, that's more so when I think it happens.
mhm.
I'm on the fence, Maureen. I'm on the fence, and I know I'm being nudged. And this is a great thing for anybody who's listening. I've resisted my spiritual path for a long time, for
Yeah.
a very, very long time. And it's that push pop, push pop, push pop. And the more I embrace it, the more experiences I have. I'm, you know, I'm not willing to fully let go yet of my control. But I know I'm being nudged in that direction. So it's coming. I've had enough experiences to of the other side to know, oh yeah, like the zero doubt in my mind of what that there's beauty on the other side. But yeah, I'm still resistant. Maybe you can help me clear that resistance.
Yeah, we can hear it one day. But here's the thing to remember too, is that when you are in these situations, you're in work mode. It's, it's different as the daughter of
Yes.
or the friend of. It's very different. We arrive in a different capacity. We can
Absolutely.
let go as much as we try to hang on and suppress emotion. But it's totally there if we can just be within, because it's a really tactile environment. We think of it as being, I don't know, breathless in a way, but it's so filled with breath and life.
Oh, it is.
My experience, and the more you see the other side and see who shows up, the more beautiful the experience. And it's not that it's not beautiful without that, it's just it's even more
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I really have seen that it helps with grieving, that it helps us hold
Yeah.
the deeper meaning of life, and really fall into the arms of a much deeper knowingness that is out there for us.
And that's one of the beautiful things for someone like myself. And because we've seen the other side, and but death is part of our experience. That's why I think I'm able to live so much more
Yeah.
than a lot of the people I see around me. To take risks, to take adventures, to say yes to opportunities, because I know that I understand the death process. And right here, right now is what we've got. So I'm gonna embrace life to its absolute fullest and
Mhm,
bring as much joy and as much passion into my life as possible, so
mhm.
that, knowing that this is going to be temporary. We literally could be, and this is, those of us who work in death care, it can be over like that.
Mhm.
Right. And it's that knowing that your life could end tomorrow, just like that. It's like, I'm going to live every moment, every second I can. You know, I'm one of those people that can say, if I was to die tomorrow, I'd live with no regrets.
Yes.
You
Well,
know,
that's interesting
and
because I
live.
always say I that is my biggest desire, is to have no regrets, and they pop up from time to time, just
Yeah.
like, little groundhogs. You
Yeah.
have to, you have to kind of, I like to bring them out, and sometimes I'm totally afraid to bring them out and look them in the eyes, but it's an important process. We can have fun and games, but we can also carry a lot that we don't wish to recognize or acknowledge is there. And that's what keeps coming at us, are the things that want acknowledgement, want us to
Yeah.
take a look at. So it requires courage,
Mhm.
for sure. But
It's not easy. And
no,
that's what people realize, the fear mongering that goes on in our society and in our collective, it's fear that blocks or stops or limits us. And
mhm,
that's what people don't realize, is most of the time the fear is not real.
no,
Fear is a thought process that is what's manifesting the emotion of fear. Now, there's times when, it's important for us to plug into our intuition and for people to become comfortable really listening to their own intuitive body and their own knowing, to know when there's a sense of caution that needs to be, go this way, don't go this way. There's an intuitive knowing there. But there's also the mind creative fear that's like, this is not real. This is literally stopping, blocking me, and limiting from moving forward and living my best life.
mhm,
So it's coming back to the body and acknowledging, is this real? Is this a real emotion? Or
yeah,
is just a monkey mind thought?
mhm.
And it's those monkey mind thoughts that just catch us in the loop, you know?
I think we've seen a lot of that over the past 3 years, almost
Oh,
4 years now.
absolutely.
And the level of fear in people has been so heightened that
I know.
I think we've lost ourselves in lots of ways. And so in my experience, I see we're coming back more to self again. And those people who have kind of that 5D awareness, I think it's been quite liberating.
Yes.
Yes.
It has been. I've really felt it. I mean, and I encourage anyone that doesn't follow astrology to plug in, because that was kind of my anchor point through the last 3 years, because I went down a lot of different rabbit holes,
Sure.
and some of them, it's really important to use discernment. But when you look at the consistency, I always came back to the astrology to navigate the last 3 years, to
Mm,
watch the astrology of what was going on. So we're in the most potent time right now. We just had a full moon,
yes.
second biggest astrological event of the year. We're coming into the biggest astrological event, March 21st with the equinox. I'm ready for some big stuff to happen. Those of us, in the truther community, or have an awareness of what's going on, we've been kind of waiting for stuff to, come a little more mainstream. I'm getting ready because I'm optimistic. I'm an eternal optimist. I always focus on the positive and, looking at moving forward in 5D. But the astrology of what's coming, ooh, it's juicy.
It is
It's
juicy.
juicy what's coming. Woo! I love it.
Juicy. That is so cool. Yeah, and it's a good reminder about the equinox coming. It's
Yeah,
uh it's gonna be big.
it
Yeah.
is going to be big. So as exactly, so follow, look at, dabble in astrology for anybody, plug into learning even basic, your sun sign, your ascendant, and your moon sign, even having an awareness of those three and
Mm,
finding a few, ethical, high vibrational astrologers and
mhm,
plugging into their information. It helps to navigate some of the bumps that are coming up ahead.
mhm,
It really, really, for me, astrology has been one of the big foundation points in navigating all the silliness of what's going on. Because it
mhm.
was predicted. I mean, we're, great transition right to where we're at and what's coming.
It's like, hello.
Hello.
It's no surprise. It's not just, pushing a button on a certain day that everything fell apart or changed or transitioned. Yeah,
Oh God.
it's a super big conversation for sure. But yeah, yeah, the to be eternally optimistical throughout it all totally changed my experience. I had like a lot of fear come in, and I thought,
Yeah.
wait a minute, who's that? And then
Mhm.
I renegotiated my contract basically with all that is, and it was like, no, I'm on the practice happiness train, so wherever you fall in that, off you go. So,
Yeah.
but it isn't always that easy for people.
No.
not
It's
always
not.
for myself either, but but I just want to shine light on the choice that's there. And I
Yeah.
think that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's having the tools to navigate. And that's the thing. As you're walking a spiritual path and you dip your toes in these rabbit holes, it's understanding and learning, basic, basic principles of, law of attraction, law of karma, law of correspondence. It's understanding and knowing the 7 universal laws, that if you have an awareness of that, then you're more able to navigate what comes up as well. I worked more than most people through all of this. I was working 3 different jobs plus navigating. I was that individual. I have no fear. Put me where you want me. I talk to spirit and I'm like, I'm here to be of service. I mean, that's, I took spiritual vows through my ordination. My focus is to be of service. So it's wherever I can best, wherever you want me to be, put me. What's ever in my highest and best interest. How can I best serve humanity? So I found myself, up at 4 a.m. doing things I wouldn't normally do, all kinds of things. And I just, coming back to trusting the process, I was just there. One of my day jobs, I mean, I got fired in 2021. And when I got the call, and I kind of knew it was coming because I chose to make decisions to remain in my sovereignty and speak my truth. And was it easy? No. I did it several times and I got knocked around a lot. But when that phone call came in, you're fired from your day job. Okay, great. Now what? I'll never forget that moment, Maureen. I sat there in the car and I went, okay, I'll drive home, I'll break down, I'll eat a bag of cookies and I'll melt down, but just get home. And as I'm driving, because I was in that place and I've had enough experiences over my life where these blips, these hiccups have happened. And I've learned, don't go into the fear mode, don't go into the pity pot, trust the process. This has happened for a reason. I sat and as I was driving in from Langford, coming into downtown, I was like, I had the hit. Drive here. So within 30 minutes of getting fired from one job, within 30 minutes, I had a new day job that is a perfect match for where I'm at.
Yeah.
So this is the power of present moment awareness. This is the power of trusting the process and knowing when one door closes, another one's going to open. Now, it may not be 30 minutes for some people. However, spirit will put us exactly where we're meant to be as long as we're in our blueprint and our soul contract, right? And that's coming within learning more about, doing your work, doing your emotional baggage work. This is multifaceted, but it's trusting that process. And then that's, if I could get, 2 things across to everybody is know that when one door closes, it's for a reason, right? And at the time we may not see it, but when we're realigned, when we're put in the next new position, there's just that surrender. There's just that knowing. There's that, yes. In 2021, I went through 5 different jobs. It wasn't one, just, I left one place. I went to another. There was 5 different scenarios. And what I gathered from that was I got my power back. I became a sovereign being in that, standing up for what I knew was integrous, what I knew was right to do. And for me, that's been I'm 53 now. That was one of the most powerful lessons I've had in 50 years, was to come into that place of going, you know what? Boom. I know who and what I am. I know what direction I'm going. I know that I'm connected and plugged into source, all that is God, source, spirit, and know that I am being guided. If I just listen to those nudges, say yes to opportunities, I'll be placed exactly where I'm supposed to be in any given moment to be of greatest service to humanity.
Love it.
Ooh, that was a bit of a rant.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. So you take love in its most heightened form, that blissful, beautiful, nothing can take me down place, which is usually what, getting married is all about, without all the hiccups and the junk that comes with it, because there's that too. And then you go to the other side where love and life has kind of made us super vulnerable, and it's really become raw.
Yeah.
And both are raw, both have joy, both have sorrow. It's amazing how they mirror each other. So how has your definition of love changed with holding these two containers?
Well, it comes back to the basic fundamental, everything is love.
Yeah.
Love is the purest vibration of who we are at our soul essence.
Hmm.
Everything is love, and we can experience love in every moment, even when it's messy, bumpy, and when it's beautiful. But it's stripping away all the Maya, all the quack, 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 all the monkey mind stuff that distracts us from feeling and experience the love vibration. And again, based on conditioning, whether it's government, government, our school systems, parental upbringing, religious upbringing, the media, all of these things suppress us and try to put us in little boxes, that take us away from the love vibration. But it's using discernment and recognizing those constructs, breaking those constructs down, coming back to the essence of who we truly are, which is love, and bringing moments back into, bringing moments and having simple moments. So again, it's, decluttering your life. Take away all that excess. We don't need the stuff. We live in a society. We don't need another object in our lives. We need basic things. Perfect. So if you're on that rut, that treadmill of the accumulation, get off that, because that's not serving you. That's just creating more stress. It's coming back to simple joy. It's take your shoes off, go walk in the grass, ground yourself, and that right there is love. It's coming back to simple things. Picking up and going and having your favorite mug. That's love right there. It's simple things. It doesn't need to be all of this crazy clutter, which society loves that to create the confusion and the discombobulation. No, we come back to absolute simplicity in every moment, in every breath. That's where love is, because that's who we are. Ultimately, we are love. It's that simple. And I'm going to tag that on too. I'm going to tag another piece onto that. Is there's that old adage, you got to learn to love yourself before you can truly love someone else. There's truth in that. And as individuals, we grow up thinking we need to fit, we need to, get this education, have this job, marry this person, buy the house, have the white picket fence, whatever. We're conditioned. This is all conditioning. If we strip that back, we need to spend more time with ourselves. We need to be able to spend time in silence and be really comfortable with ourselves, to stand in a mirror and look in a mirror in a naked physical form, and to learn to love every inch of your body, knowing that if there is not a loving thought about your body, that's come in from some outside source. Because nobody looks at a baby and goes, oh, you're ugly. Nobody says that ever. Babies are beautiful. It's as we mature, as we age, as we have life experience, as we're inundated by the outside thoughts, that's where all the unpleasant, negative thoughts come in. It's like, no. We need to come back to that pure innocence of self and learn to love ourselves wholly and unconditionally. Lumps, bumps, bruises, life experiences, traumas, all of it. Learn to love and appreciate and be grateful for what we have in any given moment.
Many philosophers say that we cannot have love without pain. They coexist in this human experience. And I think I can attest to that being absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I think, again, in my experience in being in love or experiencing love, there are many definitions of love. Many of them, I think, are totally misconstrued by the outer world, which is what you're speaking of. And so we have these desires for things to be a certain way, but it comes back to that stillness, that point within us, the true knowing, the I am, to just be, where there is no emotion with love. It's a state of consciousness. That's a tough thing within this human embodiment.
It is. And as you know, I love that. Have you found the meaning of life? Well, actually, yeah, I have. So let's have a conversation around that. We understand that we've incarnated into human physical form to have a life experience, to evolve our consciousness, to expand our consciousness. So what that means is we're going to have multiple experiences, and we've signed up from a blueprint prior to incarnating to set up certain points along our life where we are going to experience pain and challenge, and we're going to need to overcome. Some people have more than others. I believe that anyone who talks about 5D consciousness, I'm pretty sure I can blanket statement that anybody that has an awareness of 5D consciousness, they've had a tough life. They've had to go through a lot of bumps to get to where they're at. Because I know for me, I've chosen in this incarnation, I'm not coming back. Just saying, I'm going to put that out there now, even though I know I'm going to have to, right? Because we've had to overcome so much. But every time something knocks you down, you gather strength from that. Mm-hmm. You learn something about yourself. You can have that inner spark, and every hurdle that you overcome gives you more kindness, more compassion, and more gratitude for what you do have. And every time you get knocked down, you can have more empathy and be able to communicate with someone who's going through the same thing. So for example, for those of us who are in the death care trade, we've experienced death. We've had firsthand experience of what that's like. For me, my first experience, my mother passed away when I was 16. And I was the one who, I watched her for a year and a half, battle cancer. And I was the one who sat at her bedside holding her hand and helped her cross. I gave her permission to leave. I gave her permission. And at the time, I didn't think about studying death care, and more metaphysics and the spirit. I know now I am the one that gave her permission to leave her physical form, because she was hanging on because she didn't want to leave me, because she was worried about how I was going to be taken care of. And it was in that moment of me saying, it's okay, you can go, I'm going to be okay, that we were able to, she was able to take her last breath and transition. Right. So yeah, it's, I was thinking about a saying, and it was, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah. Or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's true. And it's finding ways to navigate the bumps. We already know, Maureen, challenges are going to happen. We're going to hit bumps. We're going to have trauma. It's going to happen, but it's finding ways to navigate that, learn and rise above it, knowing that, in any storm, you're going to have a sunrise. In any storm, there's going to be a rainbow. It's knowing that I'm in the muck and the mire right now. There's something going on here, and it's okay. Be in that muck, but don't stay stuck in it. Don't stay in that loop. Know that if you see a crack of light, there's going to be a crack. Follow that crack of light, and more light will come. More light will come. And, I love Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, one of the pioneers in the death care movement. She had a very synchronistic system of what the grief process looked like. And as she spent time in the death care community, her diagram of those 5 steps was just a big messy scribble, because that's what it is. And that's what life is like. One day we're down, one day we're up. From one moment to the next, we can hit bumps. We're going to have those down moments, but it's finding ways and knowing this is a temporary state, and bringing in tools, learning how to navigate, learning about present moment awareness, learning about deep breathing, bringing in, different food habits, bringing in body movement, going out and hugging someone, spending time with pets. There's so many different things we can do to be able to bring us back into that state of equilibrium, of joy, of bliss, and of love. And it's a matter of, and it's repetitive. We already know habits take time to create. It's sticking with, if something doesn't resonate with you, let it go. And I laugh at this. I had a teacher for years, and he was very good, but he pushed me, gave me tough love. And I remember going in a session when I'm like, okay, I'm trying this meditation thing. I'm trying for years. It's not working for me. He's like, so stop doing it. And I went, okay. And the minute right. And it's something similar that is because, in most spiritual traditions, they, get into lotus, deep breathe, do this. That doesn't work for me. No. I just sit, go for a walk on the beach. And I get some of my greatest hits when I'm in walking meditation, when I'm just walking on the beach, right? Or standing in the shower. I'll get these aha moments. Like, oh, where did that come from? So it doesn't need to be as hard and as regimented as it's made out to be in all of these traditions. Now, for some people, that's their path. Fill your boots, great. For me, it doesn't work so much. So it was the one simple thing. So stop meditating. Oh, the freedom I felt, Maureen. Oh, it was amazing. So do I
love it.
meditate? Not in any traditional form.
Yes.
I do have other practices. It's finding those practices, bring those practices in to be able to navigate what's the silliness of what's going on in the world.
Right. And the practices that work for you. So just as we come to the end here, and
Are we at the end? What, really?
no, not
Oh
to rush it, but there's a couple of things. So we've done, I've looked at your blood before. There's nothing as amazing as seeing life and death process in what's presenting. It's like huge. And even though we could be, down a really deep rabbit hole with regards to how it's going inside our terrain, we can redirect it and bring life back to the forefront. And can you just like sum up what that experience was like for you to observe and be part of?
Life-changing. It was an absolute life changer. And as you know, I've committed, I'm booking every 6 months with you. That's my commitment to my health and wellness. Right now, you're the only practitioner I'm having interactions with, because having that was so spot on for me. You know, I like my sweets, as we know.
Oh,
so
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I love my sweets. So it was hearing the validation from you. It was just saying, you know those mangoes right there that you're munching on? And you said I remember this, you said to me, I can feel that, the vibration of that. For me, that was a big ding dong click. So it's, I've been able to take the sugar out of my diet, which was huge.
That's
huge. For me, it was huge. It was hard, really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up chocolate. I'm just saying that much, Maureen. So, but, and it was as much as me eating way too much fruit. I mean, I really was. And my balance was so out of whack because of that. I thought I was doing the right things, but it was taking some of that. I still have my bite of dark chocolate every day, not giving that up. Good. But it was doing little things like switching coffee, which I still love, but I drink decaf. I have 1 cup of decaf in the morning. It's a ritual for me. It was you educating me about stevia, how stevia still is having an impact on my body. Here I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing, but my body's still responding that it's sugar. Out of whack. As beautiful as doing the temperature check for my thyroid. Well, we've known that my thyroid is way out of whack. And I didn't even read on the temperature chart. I was below the chart that you gave me because my thyroid was so low. So it's doing, I've been doing the iodine, I've been doing a bunch of different things to correct things. My physical pain was, I had a lot of stiff joints, a lot of stiffness and whatnot from a variety of things. The inflammation I know is almost gone. I have no inflammation in my body, which is, I'm so excited about that, So to be able to see it, and that's what I love, is I'm, the spiritual woo-woo weirdo. Someone called me eccentric the other day. I'm like, I'll own that. But that's what I love from the live blood analysis, because coming to see you for that, there's the science right there. It's in your face. You can't take it away. It's literally right there. So, I'm a huge fan. It really was a game changer. Yeah. And recently I went and I did, I was kind of curious. So I went and did all my mainstream blood work. Well, great. Everything came back normal. Well, great. I know it's not all normal. So I'm coming to see you next month. We already have my appointment booked. Because I know there's something a little disconnected. And in order for us to be the best version of ourselves, aligned with spirit, moving forward, living big, large, beautiful, grand lives and making a difference, we need to tend to our physical health. And doing live blood analysis for me is basically right now the most important thing I can be doing for myself to keep me on track, aligned, and moving in the direction towards total health and wellness. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Hey.
But I also know I need to book, right? I need to book every 6 months with you because I know how busy you are, right? But that's a commitment I've made to myself. I've got that anchor point, and I know it's coming out. And I was thinking about you the other day, and I'm like, okay, Andrea, you need to do something to tweak your pH a little bit because Maureen's going to give you heck for that.
Ever so kindly.
Ever so kind. No,
Ever so
no,
kindly.
I know,
Oh,
but it works for me. It works. Your energy works for me. And I
yeah.
have deepest respect for you. I totally honor and appreciate you. I love the work that you're doing. And that's why I'm very comfortable, not only endorsing you, but encouraging people to see you. And I know I've had some people come and see you because of what you're doing. And, just keep me in mind every 6 months, hold a spot for me.
Yes, yes, yes. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I thank you so much for sharing that. Like it's, I know I'm not for everybody either, but when it's a match, it's a match.
Oh,
And
yeah.
um, I love that, I don't advertise or anything, but I get some amazing people coming forward. And that's how it works, right? Like for you too. So my final
You're
question.
able to see the more, and the one thing, Maureen, you're able to take the spiritual and you're able to ground it into something. People want proof. Well, there's the proof. Look at your life blood. And that's what I love is you're able to, it's like, how can you, how do you define love or how can you prove love? Well, you can't, right? But through live blood analysis, you can see so much of what's going on.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Your emotional and spiritual embodiment and the biology translating all of that into a certain picture. So
Yeah,
it's I'm a fan too. It's pretty amazing.
it is amazing.
Final question in this amazing hour that we've had together. Are you is one of your ambitions to be a matchmaker? Ah,
Absolutely.
okay, fantastic. How could you not be?
Well, it's interesting. Over the years I've dabbled in. I mean, I love all this personal self-development. So I'll look at human design and I'll look at astrology and I'll personal. So that's one of the things that I'm supposed to be good at.
I have no doubt that you would be. I just had to find out for sure. So it's out in the winds that's coming
It's
up
and
next.
that's the right, and that's the beautiful thing that people need to know. Once you have a thought, you set the intention, you put it out there into the universe. The universe will conspire and go ding, 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 and bring you all the pieces of the puzzle you need in order to manifest. If it's in your blueprint, if
Mhm.
someone has a feeling of something that's that intense, it's in your blueprint. And if you say yes to the opportunities, they will match up and they will align in. Yeah. So yeah, add
See,
that to the list.
matchy matchy everywhere. I love
I
it.
love it.
Andrea, I love you. You're
I love
amazing. You will succeed and change lives everywhere you go. You're one of a kind. That is for sure. I am so
I'll
happy
own that.
for you. Yes,
As are you, my friend. Peace, blessings, and lots of love. I'll see you next month.
sounds great.